Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fun Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. In this episode, I am going to talk about volunteers and fundraising. And I'm going to talk about one thing in particular that I see a lot of nonprofit organizations engaging in, and that is having a development committee as part of your board structure. So you have your board, and then you have this committee whose responsibility is associated with fundraising. Now, before I get into that, let me just state very clearly and upfront, I am not a fan of development committees. I'm just not. I think that there's redundancy that can exist if you're not careful. It just creates some extra unnecessary work for you if you don't do this the right way. Now, a few weeks back, I did a workshop for a small group on this very topic, and I thought it would be important to bring it here to Huddle Up so that I could just share my thoughts about this, and hopefully it will help you as you think about this. Now, many of you are probably looking at me and saying, oh my gosh, I already have a development committee. What is he going to say? Right? There's hope. There's hope for you. And perhaps you may be doing this correctly. So let's talk about that. If you're going to have or establish a development committee, here's how you should do it. Okay. Now, first off, your committee members do not all need to be members of your board, right? Your chair, the chair of that committee, should be a member of your board, but not everybody on the committee needs to be a member of your board. So you can actually use the committee as a way to recruit new board members by asking them to sit on this committee. Now, you could do that with any committee, as a matter of fact. But in this case, you could use the committee as a way to recruit new board members, have them sit on the committee for a year or two, and then you can have them come up to the board, right? You get a sense of who they are, how they work, all of those things, and then you can bring them forward. That's one thing. The other thing is, this is how you should, I believe, you should structure your development committee. Because the last thing you want, and here's what happens, and maybe this is happening to you right now, your development committee becomes a redundant layer of reporting. Let me repeat that. Your development committee becomes, or already is, a redundant layer of reporting. So here's what I mean by that. If you, as the executive director, right, working closely with the chair of the development committee, schedule development committee meeting, and at that development committee meeting, most of what's happening is they're listening to you give your update about all the fundraising activity that has taken place since the last meeting. And there's questions, there's conversation, and then the meeting is kind of over. And the chair of the committee takes that information and now reports it to the board. And in essence, what's happened is you, as the executive director, you report on all the fundraising activity at the development committee meeting. You've gotten no insight, input, activity from the committee itself. And then the chair takes your report and reports it to the board. That is what I mean by unnecessary redundancy. Now, how do you do this correctly? Or how do you fix this? If you do not have a description for your committee, and I'm talking about like a job description for your committee, I suggest that you either create one or at the very least do what I'm about to tell you. There are 3 areas that your development committee should be focusing on that will give them specific direction. Number one, they should be playing a pivotal role in your stewardship activities. What do I mean by that? If you have new donors, you should have your development committee members calling those new donors to say thank you for coming on board as a donor for the first time, or perhaps sending out emails or handwritten notes. Anything in that way will help take some work off of your plate. And now you've got critical mass of individuals, maybe 6, 7, 8 people, however big your development committee is or will be, to now sort of share the wealth by sending thank you emails, notes, or making thank you calls to those new donors or to donors, period, right? You may want to have them call new, if somebody became a major donor, and without a solicitation, right? Maybe somebody, if your major giving level starts at $1,000 and someone went online and gave $1,000, then yeah, let your board call and say thank you, and then you are going to follow up and begin to develop that relationship because you want to now grow that $1,000 gift into more. So stewardship is an area that your development committee can focus on. Second, as a committee, you should have them focus on any fundraising event that you want to engage in that has the sole purpose of raising money. Now, this group can play a role in the planning, the execution, perhaps recruiting of other volunteers, and also play a role in the budgeting, all of those things to make sure that your event is a success. And it does take some work off of your plate a little bit because you obviously need to be at the event, you need to oversee this. But in terms of the legwork, having those extra sets of legs to make phone calls, run errands, do all those things associated with making the event a success will be very, very helpful. And you will give that committee a dollar goal for that event. This is the amount of money that you will net, not how much you make, not how much you gross for the event, but what you net for the event. So if it's a golf tournament, you may have a goal of netting a minimum of $50,000 after, obviously after expenses, all of that. That's going to be on the committee. That means they've got to now make sure there are sponsorships coming in at the appropriate levels, that there are enough foursomes sold, there are enough whole signs sold, that the cost for food and other things associated with the event are in line, right? To make sure that margin is $50,000 or higher. So task them with that. And let me tell you something. If that happens and it's a successful event, meaning that you're able to raise $50,000 or more, that committee is going to feel fantastic about that. They really are. They really are. So that holds true for galas and other kinds of fundraising events. Okay. So that's number 2. Number 3, and I've said this several times, this should come as no surprise to you, but your development committee can be the key door openers for you to be introduced to individuals who have significant capacity, right? So they'll be using the formula that you've heard me state several times before: link, interest, and ability. Link to the organization, interest in your mission, and the ability to make a major gift, right? So, and they can do that via email. They can do that through tag team coffees. They can also be responsible for hosting home gatherings, right? Or at least coordinating home gatherings so that other members of the board can be hosting them. Okay. So now you have created meaningful things for your development committee to do that will have a significant impact on your fundraising bottom line. And now they don't become this extra layer of reporting that you have to report to. But now when you have development committee meetings, there's action items to report on. There are things that need to be done to make sure those events are executed well. There are donors that need to be called, and there are major prospects that need to be connected with you. If you have your development committee focus on those three things, you're going to see a significant change in outcomes. So, if you have a development committee right now and you're not doing all of those things, there's an opportunity for you to reboot. Have that conversation with your development chair and talk to them about what I'm telling you and get them on board. And then you can sort of reboot the committee so that it is focusing on things that are going to meet your philanthropic needs. Okay. And if you don't have a development committee and you're thinking about doing one, this is how you start it. All right. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you certainly would love to talk about this with me, you are welcome to schedule a complimentary coaching session. Go to my website, thefundcoach.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a green button. You can schedule time to chat with me about this or anything else related to fundraising. You get that free, that complimentary coaching session, and we can chat. Okay? In the meantime, as you know, this fundraising thing is not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.